I don't think this counts as elephant in the room, but there is a thing here where previously in this meetup, a very intelligent, kind person who I already like, Aaron, gave a talk saying TypeScript enums are terrible. And it's very easy on the internet to see someone give something with a word like terrible in it and think, oh, that person is just pooping on something else needlessly. But I actually really liked that talk. I thought it was a really good exploration of some of the quirks with like a negative connotation of enums. And this talk is a response to that, obviously, but like, I don't want this to be a like flame war angry thing. Like, we're all TypeScript devs here. We're all superior to the JavaScript devs together. Like, there's no hatred here, unless you use type instead. Just kidding. All right. So we're going to talk about 5 things. I love starting off with a bang. What are enums? Like, if you've never used them, if you're not even a TypeScript dev, what the F? I'm going to explain why each of those quirks, most of the quirks that people, myself included, poop on, why they're there. We're going to talk about how TypeScript 5.0 actually fixes some of those quirks. And then with my favorite project, typescript-eslint, I'll show how to fix-ish some of the other quirks. Lastly, there was actually a TC39, the standards committee that works on JavaScript itself, proposal to create enums, which is largely led, I believe just led, by Ron Buckton, one of the TypeScript team members, which I think is really cool. So we're going to go over that, because that fixes another set of some of the things. Cool. So enums. Developers want a way to represent a named set of unique shared values. A named unique values in a shared set. I don't like that explanation. The explanation I prefer is actually from Aaron. A constrained set of values. That's a really good way of putting it. Thanks, Aaron. Let's take a look at non-enum code. This is, the font is weird. This is TypeScript. And we have a function log that takes in a verbosity, 0, 1, or 2, and a message string. We could have easily said like verbosity, like the string literal none, or info, or warn, or something like that. But for brevity, 0, 1, 2. And 0 is muted. Case 1 is console info. Case 2, console log. OK, log 0, log 1, log 2. This code works. Some people would even prefer this to any other variant of this. But there are drawbacks here. The problem with this approach is that it doesn't really work well with developer tooling. If you wanted to change it from 0, 1, 2 to like the strings none or info or warn or whatever, it would be a hard time. Like, there's nothing there that you can like one-click rename. It would just be a bunch of literals you have to find and replace in your code. And the literal 0 tends to happen a lot in code. Same with 1. Also, there's no name to this. We don't know what to name it. We don't have a shared, like, is it verbosity? Is it verboseness? Like, there's nothing stopping people from using a different name. So that's kind of annoying. There's no like find all references for 0 or 1 or 2. Fun fact, I tried and failed to add a feature to TypeScript where you could go to definition on the 0 in here and go up to that 0. TypeScript doesn't even understand internally that this 0 is represented by that. It's a whole thing. So what people have instead been using is a TypeScript feature called an enum, which is like an object. But the object, instead of being a regular object, is called an enum. And then you can refer to the object as a type. Weird sort of bridging of two worlds that class declarations also have, where you can use the name of something as a type, and then also refer to it in the runtime system, or the runtime value, where it's like verbosity.hidden is the value, which is weirder than one would realize at first. It's weird because the type system and the value system are two completely separate things in TypeScript's understanding. Runtime values can be used by runtime code, yes, and this is the stuff that JavaScript devs are used to. But in the type system, which is like its own Turing-complete world, you can refer to enums by name, and that's conceptually close to what we care about. But most of the time in TypeScript language, the spec, these things don't touch each other. You have to explicitly use a keyword or operator like type of to go from one system to the other. And because of this weird bridging and also other design quirks of enums, people have gotten angry over them. But there is a reason behind each of these things. It might not be a good reason or an aging well reason, but there's a reason. For starters, what happens if you use an enum with implicit values, so light equals 0, dark equals 1 on the left, and then reorder it? Well, the values changed now. Dark is 0 and light is 1, which means the simple act of alphabetizing your values, which is something I do constantly. I love alphabetizing code. People hate it. Oh my God. This will break or change to behavior you wouldn't expect. Break, whatever. So that's not good. So that's a quirk that implicitly valued enums, if you change the order of them, well, your code might break. But the justification here is that the point of an enum is that you don't care about the values. Sometimes, these specific implicitly valued enums. So more accurately, the point of an implicitly valued enum is that you don't care about the values. You never wrote them, you don't know what they are, but you just care about the name. And if you care about the values, then use an explicit value. Equals 0, equals 1, equals dark, equals whatever. Again, this is not a complete solution. I'm not saying you're all wrong, enums are perfect, but this is why the things work the way they work. Another fun quirk. If you do object.values or similar on an enum, it'll give you the number values and the string keys if it's a numeric enum. That's weird. And then doing a for const entry of object.entries thing, now you have a double loop where you have it a loop over the values and it'll loop over the keys. But the reason why is because at runtime, these actually become an object. And I will go into the TypeScript playground. Here we go. Let's do enum. You can't see that. Enum theme, dark, light. If you look at what the enum actually is, and this was covered in the previous talk, but just to be thorough, you're creating an object that has two-way mappings. Theme dark equals 0 equals dark. Console.log theme. And this is actually really useful because, there you go, 0 dark, 1 light, dark 0, light 1. Because if you wanted to go, let's say, const my theme equals, say you'd choose one or the other. Theme.dark, theme.light. Let's say you wanted to log it. You could say my theme is theme of my theme, and that'd work. Come on, it's really hard to operate what I'm doing right now, to look at the lagged display. There we go. My theme is, oh, I forgot the space. There's a lint rule for that somewhere. You literally can't see, oh my God. Well, anyway, this is a convenience. I'm just gonna go back to the slides, I'm giving up. This is a convenience, so that you can do theme of 0 or theme of dark. And again, this is weird, and if you want to use the thing with a loop, then, well, as Steve Apple would say, you're holding it wrong. All right. This one I hate. This is the worst of the quirks. This is truly abominable to me. Numbers are assignable as numeric enum values always. This is completely valid code in TypeScript 4.9 and earlier. Someone kill someone. Let color equals 9001. What? Well, the reason why, and they have expressed regret at this design decision, is that numeric enums are intended to always be able to support bitwise operations. Color blue, this is just a fancy shorthand to mean that you don't make it so you don't have to count 1, 2, 4, whatever. Blue is 1, red is 2, yellow is 4. It's the exponentially increasing. And then you can do if color and color.red, then you say it includes red. So what people will do with bitwise enums, and this is actually very commonly done in the TypeScript compiler itself, which is probably why they haven't fixed this bug, is they'll do const orange equals the union, the combination of those two things. Ugh, I'm seeing that expression, that sound in everyone's face, and I love it. Because you're ughing, not because this is stupid, but because this is actually kind of smart, and this is a reasonable thing to want to be able to do. Now, in retrospect, and one of the former eng lead or someone, TypeScript team members expressed this, they would have maybe liked to investigate having an explicit flag enum sign or something. I think I just said flag enum. I don't know what they would have wanted for the syntax, but some way to indicate that this is the intended use of the enum, an opt-in. But we're stuck with it now. That's just life. That being said, TypeScript 5 is gonna fix some things. And to explain TypeScript 5's improvements, I want to quickly just talk about the internals. Internally, TypeScript thought of enums 4.9 and earlier as one of two possible enum types. Numeric enums are enums that have like any expression, like value equals math.random as their value. They can have any number assigned to them. So that's why you get like color equals 9001, like any number is assignable. Then you have literal enums, where the TypeScript can understand the literal value of the enum, which is great. But then you can only base the value on primitives. And I don't think I'm explaining that well. It's my first time trying this, so I'm gonna show. You can do like light equals 3, or light equals high. Oops. And then theme of light equals high. And then let's say that you do like light equals 2, 3, 4, 6, 6. Now theme.light is number. So even though if you hover over light, it'll show theme.light equals that number you just typed. In actuality, like let theme equals 9001 is still allowed. TypeScript unifies the understanding of enum types in the latest version. So if you go to the TypeScript playground, typescript.lang.org/play, and then in the dropdown select nightly to use the nightly latest release of TypeScript. Now TypeScript doesn't care if you used like strings or numbers or whatever. Enums will always be a union type or union enum, meaning the values are understood to be only the possible values of their, well, values. So it's 0, or I'm going to switch this to 1 so I can say it easier. Now in TypeScript 5.0, we have actually fixed the any number is assignable thing, where now we no longer consider 9001 to be assignable to theme. Yay, TypeScript 5.0! Woo! Thanks, Anders! All right. So values may be any expression, not just numeric literals. Values are compared as their specific literals, like 1 or 2, not as their general primitives, like number, which we saw with the color case 9001. So this is fixed. This is great. If TypeScript can tell it's a more specific number than number, it will treat it as such. Also, another cool improvement is that we have constant expression enum values. Previously, this would have given you a complaint saying, hey, you can't have a dynamic computed shenanigan as your enum value. That's not allowed. But now TypeScript knows that prefix is constant. It's just a string. And that template literal just is based on the constant stuff. So you're allowed to do that. So this is great. TypeScript 5 has fixed a bunch of stuff. Everything is good, except not everything is good. You still need typescript-eslint, that thing that I work on that you should pay me money to work on. For starters, nothing in TypeScript land or the upcoming TC39 proposal will stop you from having duplicate enum values. You could say happy equals 1, sad equals 1, and 99% of the time this is wrong. 1% of the time, it is actually kind of useful to be able to have 2 enum values point to the same thing. Maybe it's like an options enum and you renamed a value, but as a breaking change, it would be bad to delete it, so you keep the old name. Whatever. Most of the time, this is bad. So don't do that. We have an ESLint rule you can configure for that. Also, I personally find it really confusing that you can have enums that don't have an explicit initializer. Like, we saw the thing where if you reorder the enum and they're all implicit, then it changes the semantic running of the code. So if you prefer to have an enum initializer, we do provide a lint rule for that. Another one is if you don't like enums whose values are computed based on other things, if you find it confusing to read through that, then we do have a rule that says you need to make it a literal value. I don't care. I don't use this rule, but some of you might. Now, last 2 ones are work in progress. This one, I have an open pull request. Someone please approve my pull request. It says no unsafe enum comparison. So this if fruit less than 1 and fruit is an enum is not an error in TypeScript. And I really wish it was, because that's confusing. So we have a lint rule in review that might be available within the next months or years that stops you from doing that. Lastly, this one is fun. So let's say that you have an enum and you write a helper function that creates a new number every time. This is like an exponentially increasing number, 1, 2, 4, 8, and so on. Then TypeScript won't be able to infer that this is like just a number that's a specific thing to the enum. It thinks it's a number, and you would again be able to do value equals 9001, which is bad. So this rule if we were to implement it, would tell you that you can only assign an enum value to another enum value. You can't assign some arbitrary number or something. You'd have to do value equals values.whatever. I have tried and failed to write this rule. It's actually really complicated and hard. There are all sorts of places like functions and generics and stuff where you can provide a value and then it actually gets resolved to an enum. So if any of you are feeling gutsy, 2 people have tried and failed to get a pull request merged, but I believe in you. The problem actually is just I don't have time for it. No one has time. So anyway, the TC39 enums proposal is going to be the right way to do enums if and when it lands. Heavens only know. If you want to read it, it's not that long. It's actually really succinct. github.com/rbuckton/proposal enum. Just going over the basic features of it. This is what the syntax is going to look like. Basically the same as TypeScript. The only difference is I personally use Pascal case in my values names. I would have like uppercase the Z, and Ron prefers camel case in his values. So that's a completely irrelevant thing no one cares about. I'm totally not upset. It was the alphabetation. Yeah. And so if you want to be explicit about what you auto increment with, the proposal is that you can do something like an of number, which is kind of cool. I forget what else the proposal says. Here we go. So if you look at the ofs, you can do like of string, of symbol. So like, oh, right. So like if you do of string, then idle would be equal to quote idle, which is like kind of cool. I really like that. That's a nice feature. And then a bunch of enum utilities. So like it is legitimately confusing that oftentimes if you do like an object.entries or object.keys or values of an enum, you get both the keys and the values for numeric enums. So instead we have this nice set of enum helpers. You can do like enum.values the same way you do like number.to whatever. Capital N on that number. So I think that's really nice. This is in stage 0, 2? It's real early. It's at stage 0. For those who aren't familiar with the TC39 stages, stage 3 is when browsers start to implement it. Am I correct in that? Does anyone remember? When do browsers start implementing things? Stage 3 or stage 4? Is it 4?
Can just anyone make a 0?
Yes. Anyone can make a 0. That's the stage this proposal is at. Now, not anyone can.
You can click it right there at TC39 proposal process.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm embarrassed. I should know when. Okay, browser. They don't even mention browser. Look at them being all agnostic. Yeah. So, stage 3, purpose, allow input, criteria, none, entrance signifies, nothing. So this is really early stage. But if you are interested in this, it's like a nice, relatively simpler proposal and like async await and other really complex ones. Definitely recommend reaching out to Ron, tell him I said hi, and saying you want to work on it because I'm going to be doing that. Anyway, that's all I had on enums. They are in some ways terrible, but they're also things that can be used somewhat well. We talked about enums, we talked about justifying the quirks, we talked about TypeScript 5 helping improve them with the union stuffs. I showed some lint rules, some of which you should use maybe, and then I'm real excited about the proposal. I already gave this slide so that I'm Josh Goldberg. I wrote a book, Learning TypeScript, you should buy it. And then this is the updated logo I made for typescript-eslint with James Henry, one of the other maintainers. So real excited about that. But again, thank you to MITS, Michigan TypeScript, Dimitri and Co. for having me. This has been great. Cool.
Do you use enums or do you use an alternative?
You know, the question is, do I use enums? Do I use an alternative? I almost put this in the slides, but somehow I knew this was going to be a question asked. Might as well save for after. The rude answer for me would be I state this in my book, Learning TypeScript. You should go read it. But the answer I give there is TypeScript has a very small set of syntax features that it adds that add onto JavaScript, meaning add onto the runtime of JavaScript. Enums, namespaces, formerly known as modules, and the old decorators syntax, experimental decorators, are like the only real 3. I try to avoid them at all costs because it's real bad to conflict with JavaScript. As we see in the Enums proposal, JavaScript might add the thing and it might not be the same, and it's confusing to JavaScript devs. So just on principle, because I don't like what TypeScript has sometimes referred to as like, not quite a mistake, but one language word short of that, I just try to avoid it. But sometimes it's just so freaking useful. So if my general rule of thumb is for enums, if it's so perfectly tailored to your use case that it would just be annoying not to use it, which is very rare but not never, then yeah, use them. I can't remember the last time I decided to write an enum though. It's been like a year or two. What about you?
No, I ban them in code bases.
That's fair.
A custom ESLint rule to ban them in code bases.
I should show people how to do that. So there's this great ESLint rule, no restricted syntax, which lets you specify any type of node in your AST, so any type of syntax in your source file, to just say no. And in typescript-eslint.io/playground, you can enable the AST viewer to see what stuff is called, my enum. So let's say I'm going to click on this. It's a TS enum declaration. I'm going to configure my rules to say no restricted syntax error. I think this is just the way to do it. And if I go back to my code, oh, why isn't it yelling? God dang it. This is the worst. Come on. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, eventually we'll make a playground version that lets you see the ESLint config at the same time as the yellings. But yeah, you can just very quickly ban no restricted syntax using that in your code base.
That's exactly what I do, yeah.
Nice. Same page.
Are there other languages that kind of inspired the proposal for enums?
That's a great question. You also pronounce it the way that may or may not be more proper, enums, than the way I say, which is enums. I think you're right and I think I'm wrong, but I'm not sure. I also keep forgetting that that's a thing. Are there languages that, I actually don't know.
Go is the worst one.
Go is the worst one. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It's not mentioned in the spec explicitly. So I don't know. But I also know Ron Buckton is a Microsoftie who's used C# before. So I would be very shocked if C# and other .NET languages haven't influenced it. But that's just conjecture. What are Go enums like?
Say like what it's inspired by languages in the proposals. I feel like I've seen that before.
Yeah. Oh, they've hit all the stage 1 entrance criteria. Good for them. Cool. I'm just going to look up Golang. Huh. Golang. Cool. Anyway, yell at me on the internet if there's an answer to that.
You're okay as long as Golang isn't in the...
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the TypeScript developers kind of admitted that the bitwise operators should have been an opt-in, and it sounded like, I might be confused, but it sounded like in 5.0 everything has to be explicit. Does that mean that you can no longer use it as a bitwise operation, or will there be a way to now opt into it?
I should be specific in what I'm referring to so that the TypeScript team doesn't yell at me. It's happened before. I've found a couple of comments from their GitHub issues tracker saying we might have considered, in retrospect, we might have considered making it 2 separate things or something like that. I already forget how to do the bitwise operator thing. Is this, there we go, okay. I believe you should still be able to do that. So like if light is 4, that's still allowed, yeah. Then, cool. So if you wanted to enable the scenario where you do like any arbitrary number instead of theme, you could always as number, which is not great. But let's say you wanted to like function check for theme, which takes in a my theme, returns whether theme is this how you check whether it's anded? I forget. Anyway, check for theme. Yeah, so I guess this is more restrictive. But you can always pass in like theme.dark and theme.light. So you can still do that, interestingly. I honestly haven't explored the quirks too much. Shame on me for not preparing adequately for a presentation, but I think it's pretty cool. I also never use enums, so haha, not a problem for me. Bang.